right, a couple minutes past now, so we'll go ahead and kick things off. Thank you all for joining. Once again, this is our Winter 25 release webinar where we'll go over a lot of exciting updates and enhancements to our core products. So we'll go ahead and get into our introductions here before we cover our agenda. My name is Michael Daly, Director of Technical Product Marketing here at Provar, and I'm joined by Samuel and Ravi, who is Samuel is our VP of Product and Technology of our Salesforce Apps, and then we have Ravi, who's going to be joining in as our Senior Product Manager for Test Automation. So as far as our agenda today, we'll kick things off with automation. We'll be going over some of our changes that were for the Salesforce Winter 25 update, as well as NitroX Updates and some other improvements that we'd like to share with you all. Then we'll be getting into some new updates for the Provar Manager 3.9.0 release. And then lastly, we'll close things out with our Provar DX CLI Updates and the new version of Provar DX that is now currently available. And then lastly, as always, we'll have a Q&A. So feel free at any time to leave your questions in the Q&A function in the Zoom at the bottom. If you leave a question there, we'll be sure to get to it at the end of the session. And with that being said, I'll hand things off now to Ravi, who's going to be talking through Provar Automation.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this webinar. I'll cover the Provar Automation update. So as we know, Winter 25 is the key highlight or key focus of this release. So I'll start with Winter 25 Salesforce release changes. Next slide, please. So starting with the very first one, section and accordion. So this has been one of the big change coming as a part of Winter 25 Salesforce release, where we have seen accordion has now includes a new field set tag. That's a lightning component tag, and also some DOM changes around sections. These are widely used across different screens. For example, new, view, edit, inline edit, clone screens, and the flexi pages as well. So it has a widespread impact on all kind of screens. It means if you have any automation script, that will be certainly impacted by this change. Yes, I mean, it is included as a part of Winter 25. Other than that, path assistant key fields in another area where we have seen the section changes and some DOM changes on the key components on this page. So this has been one of the biggest change coming as a part of Winter 25. Moving to the next one. The next change is around the overlay screen or the model pop-up screens. So as we see, we have multiple overlay or model pop-up screen in Salesforce. For example, screens like campaign member edit screen, lookups, contact roles. So we have seen a consistent change on these overlay screens where there had been some DOM structure changes, addition of some new tags, removal of some existing tags, and some attribute changes on these screens. So starting with the first one, for example, we have seen some additional tags introduced on campaign member edit screen, add contact role screen, and add product screen, where there are some addition of new tags. These are not LWC tags, but these are generic tags, but this has been introduced as a part of Winter 25. On the merge case screen, we have seen like there is no new introduction of any DOM, but it has been replaced with the new tags. The properties has been changed, and a new structure has been formed inside the DOM structure that has impacted the merge case screen as well. And on add lead to campaign screen, we have seen certain removal of existing tags. So there has been a hierarchy of parent and child tags for the add lead screen. Now it has been removed. It has been simplified by the Salesforce. Now we have seen certain tags has been removed from add lead to campaign screen. And the last one is around the attribute changes. So till now we have seen there have been removal and addition of the tags, but in the campaign add to campaign screen, we have seen they have changed the properties and the attributes as well. So that has impacted any XPath if anyone has used on these screens. So again, so these are a few that I've mentioned on this screen on this slide, but there are widespread changes across the overlay and the model pop-up screens. Next one, please. And the last one is around the LWC framework transition. So as we know, Salesforce continuously transitioning from Aura to LWC for different kind of components, even for the standard ones. It has been doing so in the previous releases as well, but also continuing in this Winter 25 release as well. So for example, on this convert lead screen, they have one additional field called converted status that has been now migrated to LWC from Aura. Other field on the screen have been already migrated to LWC in the previous releases because Salesforce does it in the bits and pieces. I'm not sure why they're not doing it for all the fields in one go, but this time they have done it for converted status screen. It means the framework has changed. The DOM rendering will also change because now it is rendered in the LWC format. Next one is around the field and validation error message relationship. So as we have seen on the new screen or the edit screen, we have the validation error message just below the field, and there is a relationship that ties that error message to that particular field. That relationship has been changed behind the scene. You will not see any visible change there, but behind the scene, when you use automation scripts, then that must be impacted with this change. So that relationship has been changed by the Salesforce in Winter 25. The last one is one more LWC component, field set tags that I mentioned in the first slide. So field set tags has been introduced for section and accordion. That has a widespread impact. And this field set tag is an LWC tag that has been introduced by Salesforce in Winter 25 release. So all in all, these are a few changes that we could mention over the slide. We have detailed information available on the release page as well, a tabular structure that talks more about it in detail. So if you want to learn more, you can have a look on the release page as well. Next one. So next section is NitroX update. So I'm going to go over NitroX update as a part of this Winter 25 R1 release. Go to the next slide, please. So the first change that is coming as a part of this NitroX update is updating the nomenclature from fact to NitroX. So if you have used NitroX in the past, you must have seen we used to have folders like fact and fact packages. It was a little confusing in the past because NitroX is the term that we have been using consistently. And for the folder, it was fact and fact packages. So just to eliminate that confusion, now we have streamlined and made it consistent. So everywhere we are seeing fact, we are using now NitroX as the name of the folder, and wherever you have seen fact packages has been now changed to NitroX packages to keep it consistent. This change has been made for the project structure. So as you can see on the left side, where we used to have fact and fact packages, now has been converted to or changed to NitroX and NitroX packages. And on the right side, on the user home directory, where it downloads the standard packages or standard components. It used to be .fact in the past. Now it will be .nitrox. And just one point to cover in this one. So this will be an automatic change. So user doesn't have to do anything. Whenever they launch this new version of Provar, it will automatically be updated for them. So they don't have to worry about anything for this.
I would say one caveat here, as far as this goes, if you are seeing a message pop up in 2.14.1 whenever you open up your project related to renaming, you can go into the user home Provar directory and rename the fact folder to NitroX, and that should resolve that. We did see that sometimes, so just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for pointing this. Okay, then the next one is around the custom XPath generator for non-unique custom components. So NitroX keeps on generating the smart locator for you for standard and custom components. But for the typical custom components where you don't have any unique property available and you want to select the properties on your own, now we have the capability available on the test builder where you can see a structure where you can simply tick on the checkbox and choose the property that you feel is unique. And the attribute that you feel is unique. So it is very easy now to select the attribute for the non-unique custom components. And it is for the extreme cases where you don't have some unique property available, but for the generic components, for the standard and custom components, NitroX will keep on providing you the smart locators. But it is an additional feature that you can keep on using on the test builder directly. Next one, please. Moving to the last section of this automation updates, other improvements. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the focus of this release was Winter 25. But other than that, we have been focusing on some other areas as well, just to keep the product up to date. The areas were security, performance, and stability. So as a part of that, we have improved security of the current product, and that is coming as a part of Winter 25 release, where we have upgraded certain outdated jars to the latest one so that we don't have any outdated or legacy plugins or jars available in the product. And it has been a consistent theme that we have been doing following in the past as well, and will continue to follow in the future as well. So that is coming as a part of this Winter 25 R1 release. The next one is around a strategical fix for longer execution packs. This is an important one. We have been hearing certain concerns from the customers around having some intermittent results for longer test execution. It means when you're running the test case locally, it was working fine. When you're running it in a smaller pack, it was running fine. But when you're running it on a longer execution or the bigger packs, for example, it is running for 8, 10, 12 hours, then there had been some intermittent failures coming up. So what we had done as a part of stability, we had done certain fixes around it, so a strategical fix around it on WebDriver and null pointer exception that makes it very stable and consistent, so that your execution, whether it is small pack or a long pack, it is consistent and stable and gives you the consistent result. So this strategical fix is included as a part of this release. The last one is around GUID handling. GUID had been there for a while, so we had been using GUID as well as registry ID to uniquely identify the test item on the test project. Now we have streamlined GUID to be more optimal. It is now spread across test cases, test plan, test folder, and test instances. Now the integration, I mean, definitely you'll be able to uniquely identify any element, means you'll not have that confusion of duplicate IDs in the product. Also, if you are interacting with Provar Manager, the communication will be better and will be able to identify element optimally on after this implementation. So these three improvements are coming as a part of this Winter 25 R1 release. I guess that's all we had from the automation side. I will hand over to Samuel for Provar Manager updates.
Thank you, Ravi. Cool. Let's start with the first slide. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so we released Provar Manager 3.9 at the end of August. And if you haven't updated yet, feel free to do it from the plugins marketplace or from the App Exchange. You can upgrade to this latest version. In this version, we focused mostly on the test operation side of things. So just as a refresher, Manager includes 3 different applications within it, one for release management, another for test management, and another for test operations. For release management, we didn't add anything new, but still I wanted to talk about things that are coming up in the future. So we will be focusing on helping you keep track of your backlog, also adding some quality metrics on sprints and releases so that you can get a number of bugs and overall state of quality of a particular sprint or release. We're also looking to improve the integration with Jira, and we are also looking to help those customers and those prospects that are looking to migrate into their test projects into Manager. Moving on to test management, we've added a new feature for AI risk mitigation plans. So I'll show you this later, but if you have connected to OpenAI and you are able to use AI features within Provar Manager, now you will be able to generate those mitigation plans in Manager. We've also added numbers. Some people ask for it, and we've done some UX improvements in the saving process of Program Manager settings, VCS, and Salesforce connections. And then finally, on test operations, we've devoted most of our time on improving the user experience and some of the things that could be improved as well. So around test plan schedules, the moment it was running every hour. So every hour it would pick up any job that needed to be run. And now we've increased that to run every 15 minutes. So it will run your jobs more often. You don't have to wait a whole hour for it. We've also added a new tooltip to check for local time conversions. And then if you're running Apex unit tests from Manager, now you're able to disable defect creation. So beforehand, automatically, if there was an issue with a particular unit test, it would generate a defect record off the back of it. But obviously, if you're running the same unit test again and again, and you haven't fixed it, then it's going to generate the same defect again and again. So we've enabled you to disable it. We've added some checks on the connection to VCS. so version control systems like GitHub, so that we make sure that the connection is stable and is working. And if there's any issues, you can see the error messages. Finally, for Provar Grid, we've enabled support for test case execution level compared to what we had before. So before, you were able to run on a test suite level. So if you wanted to run a number of test cases, you have to do it running the whole test suite they belong to. But now we've added that next level of detail and granularity, so you can run test cases. Cool. I think the next one is ProvarDX. So before we move on to ProvarDX, I'm going to share my screen and show you some of those features.
Yeah. Screen's all yours, Samuel.
Cool. Give me a second. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah. So this is Provar Manager. And the first thing I want to show is the new AI risk mitigation plan generation. So in Manager, we are able to capture risks in the context of a test plan. So I'm just going to jump onto a particular test project. So I have here my Office HR project. I have a test plan within it where I've documented what my team is going to do in terms of testing this particular part of the system. And as part of the documentation and investigation and planning of this, we've identified some risks, as you can see here. So in this example, the test plan is about system integration with a payroll system. And one of the risks is, for example, payroll reporting. So here we have a risk, and the description says, should a problem occur, employees' tax withholding and pay could be affected if the withholding tax report sent to the IRS are incorrect. Fines and back interest may be assessed. Correcting a major defect in production could be very expensive. So other than describing the risk and be able to assess the impact, you are able, obviously, to define a way of mitigating this risk. That could be your strategy, that could be an approach, and also proposing a solution. So now you can find a button up here that says Generate Mitigation Plan. When you click it, it will use a connection to OpenAI to generate mitigation strategy, mitigation approach, and proposed solution for you. So obviously here you can review it, you can change it and update it, and maybe use this way of getting ideas on how to mitigate the risk that you have identified. You can save it from here, and it will be saved in your risk record. Okay, so now we go to test projects. I want to show you the changes on test plan schedules. So I'm going to go back to the test project, and I'm going to go to my test plan. This one actually has some schedules in it. Let's go to this one. I think this is Salesforce one. So this is the one I use to run Apex unit tests. The first thing you will notice now is that we have this tooltip here helping you to understand at what time it will run. So the time here that users select is in the universal time zone. And obviously, some people may not know what's the time difference between the universal time zone and their own time zone. So here, it's picking up the time zone from my user. And if I were in a different country, not in the UK, and there was a difference between my user and the country I'm in terms of time zones, I would also see my local time zone. So I would see my user and my local time zone. And essentially, it's just a way of helping me understand at what time is this going to run. Other than that, this being an Apex job, now if you go to configure settings, you are able to disable this automated feature which says raise defects on failures. Now you can disable that. And every time there's a failure, you will obviously see the unit test failed. You can see the error, but it will not create a defect record for you automatically. Finally, let me go to a test plan schedule that uses Provar Grid. So let me go back to test plan and go to this regression test plan schedule. So this one is connected to my GitHub repo where I'm storing my Provar test project. And then here I'm using Provar Grid to run my Provar automated test cases in the cloud. So now if you go to configure settings, you will see that there's a new feature here, a new toggle that says split by test case. That means that when it comes to running, all the test cases are set here. They will be split by test case and not by test suite, which essentially means it will be more efficient and your tests will run faster. Well, not the test cases themselves, but the overall runtime would be faster because it's more efficiently dividing the test cases amongst all the different parallel executions. So for example, here I have split by test case, and then I've chosen one platform and browser and two platforms and browsers. So essentially two combinations. Every test case will run on macOS Safari and Windows 10 Chrome. And then here I'm saying run all the test suites added to the test plan. So if I go to test plan, you can see it's going to run the times sheet. And then this one has two test cases. So we have two test cases, two platforms each. So we will have 4 different executions. And those 4 different executions will be split into 2 different processes. And because we're splitting now by test case, then we are able to run it faster. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share for Provar Manager. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and hopefully, Michael, you can share again. And we can move on to Provar DX CLI. So we haven't talked about Provar DX in a while, I think. But I wanted to highlight that we have a CLI that you can use to run Provar tests locally or on your CI pipeline. But not only that, you can also now use Provar DX CLI to connect to Manager, which we've just been reviewing. So the new things that are coming up in the latest version, which is 1.3, and you can upgrade to that already. We have 2 major features, which is the ability to override Provar Automation Salesforce auth connections. So if on Provar Automation, the way that you connect to Salesforce is using an auth connection. Now with Provar DX CLI, you can override that. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you're running your Provar tests in a pipeline and you're using Scratch orgs, this is a great way of overriding your connection so that now it points to the Scratch org and be able to direct all your tests towards it. Now you're also able to configure login output levels, so you can get more or less granular level of details of the logs that it outputs. And finally, we've added support for special characters on the test project secrets. I wanted to just refresh everyone's minds on what is currently generally available on the Provar DX CLI. So obviously you can run your Provar test locally or on a CI pipeline using the automation plugin that comes with it. And with the Manager plugin, you can connect to Manager and you can retrieve those test cases that are relevant to you. You can use that in a pipeline or just as you're developing anything. Let's say you are in a pipeline trying to test a particular feature branch that is related to a user story in Jira. So by connecting to Manager, you can understand what are the test cases that you should be running, and then using the run Provar test, you can run those locally. I wanted to give you also a heads up of what is coming up down the line. So we will be working mostly on the integration with Manager. We're working on commands to allow you to open Manager quickly from the CLI, and also to run Provar and Apex tests in the cloud. So as we were just seeing, you can use test schedules to trigger tests on Provar Grid or another Salesforce org. And now what you can do is leverage that from your local environment or from a CI pipeline. Now, why would you want to do that? Let's say that you're using GitHub Actions to test a particular pull request or any code and development that you've been working on. It may be that the resources on that GitHub Actions machine are not good enough, or it will make you run your tests in a serial mode, and it will one, maybe not have enough resources, or it will take too long. A solution here is to be able to leverage Provar Grid. So you can just use this command, which will talk to Manager. Manager talks to Grid, comes back, and then eventually you get the results. So it will be running faster, not necessarily depending on the hardware where you are trying to run a test on. Then obviously we will have a command to be able to abort those test runs. And finally, we'll also looking to help you to upload test results that can be generated by any other test automation tool. So it could be generated by Robot Framework and other frameworks, as long as they output things in a JUnit format, and you want to keep track of all of those test results in one place. So Provar Manager is a great tool, an application to help you bring in the information, those test results from any execution that you do, so that you have just one place, one dashboard where you see the state of quality across all your applications. And finally, we do have a VS Code extension that is still on the marketplace, and you can use it, but it still leverages the old Provar DX CLI. So we will be working on a new VS Code extension that uses this new CLI and also takes advantage of all these commands that we're building. Cool, let's move on to the next slide. To help you learn more about ProvarDX, the team at the University of Provar has put up a new course. So please go and enroll and go through all the different sections of it, and it will help you to understand how you can leverage ProvarDX so that you can run your tests from your command line. And before we move on, we're going to just do a quick poll. So Michael probably will be able to launch that one just to get an idea of how are you running your Provar tests in your CI pipelines, let's say on GitHub Actions or Jenkins. Are you using Ant, or you're not automating those executions in any way? Or maybe you're leveraging ProvarDX. That will help us to understand how much more effort we need to put into singing the praises of ProvarDX, which obviously is a better tool than Ant, but people may be more familiar with Ant and just historically. So we will be probably running more courses and more content on how to migrate from Ant into ProvarDX and the benefits that you get from using ProvarDX instead of Ant. So let's just run it for a few more seconds and then we can end the poll. Thank you.
And special shout out from our side to Tara Walton, who put together this awesome course on Provar DX. If you've never used it or you don't know what it is and you have no background knowledge at all, it starts you off with an introduction, goes through the full implementation, answers all your questions, and there's quizzes, of course, at the end. So highly recommend taking a look at it if you're at all curious about another alternative to Ant, because that's definitely what we're trying to convince people to switch over to. All right, I'll go ahead and end the poll now. I think most folks have replied that are going to reply. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like we got about 71% saying they're utilizing Ant, and the rest are in the NA column. So no one for the Provar DX columns yet. So work to do there.
I need to preach to those 30% and also to the Ant people.
All right. I'm going to continue on here with the last few bits before we jump into our Q&A. Thank you for those of you that have been leaving your questions in the chat. Before we get into that bit, I did want to share some updates for Dreamforce coming next week. Of course, we will be there. We have a large Provar team that's going to be going to Dreamforce next week. As far as where you can find us, if you'd like to come stop by and say hello, we'll be in the main campground at booth 1013. So looking at the map there, it's kind of the left-hand side if you're facing the main theater. And then booth number 1 in the Trailblazer Forest, which is kind of in the middle right side there. And going from the entrance, you'll be able to see that one as well. So 2 different booths, different buildings there. So just keep an eye out for us if you'd like to come by and stop by. We may have some swag for you. So. And as far as who's going to be there from our team, I'm not going to introduce everyone, but we have our largest team ever going to Dreamforce this year. So we're super excited to be able to go this year with this team. So again, if you'd like to stop by and say hello, this is the list of folks who are going to be there. So anyway, I'll let that be that, and excited to see you all next week at Dreamforce if you'll be there. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our Q&A session. So we have a number of questions that have been asked. So we'll go ahead and go through these in order. The first question that came in was around WebDriver updates. Seems here, it says, are there any plans to keep WebDrivers up to date so that we don't have a big gap anymore, like using a version from 2017 and 2023, for example? So I don't know, Ravi, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So we have recently upgraded to the most latest version of Selenium, which is 4.16. So it is available now. So if you're using the latest version of Provar, you should have the latest Selenium and WebDriver version available to you. And that's what we're going to keep in practice in future as well. So if any new version comes up, so we'll not delay that for that long, and then we'll continuously upgrade.
And correct me if I'm wrong, on the release notes page as well, you can find the latest Chrome driver update as well on there that we're using with this, that's packaged with this release.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we have another question in here. This one looks like it might be for Provar Manager. It says, can we have more a higher length limit for the description field and group steps? 100 characters not quite enough, as sometimes we need to put some detailed logic explanation due to not having description field and other step elements. I'm not sure if that's for Manager or Automation. Sounds like it might be for Manager there.
I was thinking Automation because we don't have a group step.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So, okay. Then maybe this is, I didn't know we had a character limit. So, Ravi, I don't know if you want to tackle this one then.
Yeah, quite same for me. I didn't know there's a limit to this, but yeah, I think if there is, like, we can see description. So if it is talking about group step, I think it is just to give the summary. I think if you want to put the detail, so we have a test case summary field where you can put in more details. So discuss group step is something to summarize and group multiple steps in one group, and that's where you can summarize it. We thought like keeping it under 100 characters should be sufficient, but if not, we can definitely review it back.
Thank you for that. Hopefully that answered the question. We had another one come in here. It's looks like this is related to the consolidation of test execution reports. Looks like maybe there was a question in on how we could extend it with maybe some examples on that one. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that, Ravi.
Yeah, I think it's a good feedback. Seems like the help page currently we have is not working for everybody, so I think it needs an update. So I'll take that feedback and make sure it is updated. But just to quickly answer you, like if you have used test cycle for Ant execution, it works in a similar way for test plan as well. So there's not much difference, but yeah, we take your feedback like to update the help documentation for that.
Yeah. We had another question in here. what is the biggest change for Salesforce Winter 25? So that's a good question.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this in the slide as well. So section and accordion change are the biggest one, not in terms of the change is big, but it has a widespread impact on the Salesforce because sections and accordions are used across the pages, whether it is new, view, edit, inline edit screens, or even the flexi pages. So accordion and sections are used everywhere, and that way it has impacted all the screens, almost all the screens. So that was the biggest change from the automation point of view. But yeah, in general, definitely Salesforce are coming up with the new features, but from automation point of view, yes, that was the biggest change that we perceived.
Thanks for taking that one, Ravi. Okay, we had another question in here. Looks like it might be a follow-up to the WebDriver, but I think maybe it's just a clarification. Was about planning for periodic updates. I think we've probably already answered that one, so we can probably skip past that for now. But we did have another one here related to the Salesforce release notes. Are there any changes mentioned in our webinar release notes that are mentioned in the Salesforce release notes as well? Are there other items that we're aware of in the release notes?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably I missed to mention that during my slides. So yeah, I think all the changes that I mentioned on these slides were unannounced changes. So you'll not find anything on the release notes, on the Salesforce release notes. This is something that came after internal investigation and analysis that we did. But yeah, these are all unannounced changes. But yeah, there are a few that are announced changes. For example, you can go to your Salesforce org onto the release updates page, and you can find like there are new changes coming in Winter 25. You can enable them and test them if you have not already migrated to Winter 25. If you are migrated to that, then you'll already have those features available, and you can apply that filter on the release Salesforce release notes and find out like what are the release updates coming in into your org. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that, Ravi. Any other last questions from anyone? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to attend today's webinar from our Winter 25 Release 1 and of all of our product updates, enhancements, and features. So we're super excited to share this all with you all. That being said, you can find the release on the Success portal. It is currently available. You can download it there, as well as the manager links and the Provar DX installation guide, and everything will be on there as well. So you can take that course and find out more information about that. With that being said, we'll go ahead and close the webinar. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week at Dreamforce.